But I think that our biggest mistake was not to insist upon having a permanent agreement immediately. Thank you very much. Well, the Oslo Agreement was an interim agreement. And one of its downsides was that it was perceived by the world and in a way by the parties as a permanent peace agreement. After all, very few people get into the details of agreements. The agreements are very boring. And so those who wrote the agreements usually know what they wrote. It's not the rule, by the way. But the assumption is that they know what they wrote, that they read the annexes, that they know the details. But the general public is not required to read every word. And usually it is pictures, and those who remember, the picture of the Oslo agreement was a tall young person with two other leaders on his two sides. The tall guy was a new American president who had no experience in international affairs, needed badly a success. And we brought him this success without any involvement. So he was very happy. And made out of it a big, big deal. So that people, and the others were, of course, Yitzhak Rabin and Yasser Arafat. So the world was very happy. I mean, any agreement by the two sides, like the Dayton Agreement. I mean, okay, you have an agreement, Dayton, fine. We are very happy that the two rivals got an agreement at the end of the day. We can write a V, it's okay. But Oslo was the beginning. And the international enthusiasm around Oslo became very soon the enemy of the continuation, because people were very frustrated. How come you signed a peace agreement? Why do you still kill each other? Stop it. So I believe that there was a mistake. Oslo was a continuation of a process, of the Madrid process, and it was agreed in advance that it would be only an interim agreement. But I think that our biggest mistake was not to insist upon having a permanent agreement immediately, without waiting for, trust and confidence buildings and all these things which are important but take time. And we don't have time. Time is running. So it was very easy among the two delegations which met for the first time, because the Israelis were forbidden from talking to the PLO organization people. And we met for the first time in Norway on the 20th of January 1993, 4 days after this, there was the law passed in the Knesset, which enables us to meet with the other side. So this was by itself the revolution, to meet legally with the other side. And it was so easy to create good relations with the other side, to understand the other side. Because the biggest secret is not necessarily that they trust each other, but that they have the same goal. And our same goal was to succeed and to have an agreement. So in the negotiating room, in the secret negotiating room, it was the easiest thing to do. What happened later on is that, in a way, there was, I believe, too much trust. I think that the point of too much trust is not taken seriously. Because what is happening in the negotiating room, which is a very unique room, and not enough was written about it. The dynamics in the negotiating room create, for example, a club of negotiators from both sides. Their main aim very soon become negotiating with whom? With their bosses. And they are telling them, no, we asked you, don't give up on this point or another point. And the negotiators are saying, Mr. Prime Minister or Mr. President, but we got something else that was very important for us. So this is the negotiations which is taking place. But what is the exaggerated trust? The trust which is built in the negotiating room is the trust between negotiators, not between peoples. And if I may, I can give you an example. And it is, I think, a very, very telling example. Because at a certain point, and not at the end, at the beginning, the Palestinian side said, one of the articles of our interim agreement should be that until we have a permanent agreement, Israel stops all the settlements in the occupied territories, in the West Bank and Gaza. Now, for us negotiators, it was not something totally crazy. All of us were against settlements. So it wasn't such a big deal that the other side is asking us to stop settlements. We talked with Prime Minister Rabin and said this is for them a crucial issue. 5 years, can you imagine, 5 years of interim agreement, and all these 5 years, the Israeli side is building territory, settlements. So we have to agree to freeze it. Rabin said, no. Take into account the government resolution 360 from 92. It was a very important resolution, which actually said that Israel unilaterally stops the settlements. It had many reservations, whether public constructions or private or whatever, but this wasn't a very important statement that he, Prime Minister Rabin, wanted to tell the world, I am doing it by myself. Here come the Palestinians and say, now you have to stop settlements. Hey, I did it. So tell the other side that it is not needed, and if I agree to it, it will be seen as if I surrendered to the Palestinians in doing something which I wanted to do. And I have a resolution, public, you can look at it. Here comes the trust. We talked to our counterparts and said, you know, Rabin has a case. Although we agree with you that we should stop it, we should officially stop it, but for him, you can trust it. He is a man of his word, and nobody is going to deceive you, and there will be no settlements, actually. They consulted, they did not like the idea. Eventually, they came to us and said, we agree to it. For Rabin, it was a very big achievement. But it was a huge mistake. A huge mistake. Why? Because it was part of the agreement. It was not a special, I mean, after a few years, as you know, Rabin was assassinated. Somebody else replaced him. Immediately it was Peres, but after a few months it was Bibi Netanyahu. And Netanyahu said, I mean, the peace camp in Israel said, you should stop the settlements. And he said, show me, where is it written? Do you have some proof? And we said, no, it was trust. You know this name, this word, trust. There was a mutual trust, and we said that we will not build settlements. He said, with all due respect, if it is not part of the agreement, I don't have to fulfill it. And I think that for any negotiator, it is very, very important. Don't be misled by the trust which is created in the room of the negotiators, because they are there temporarily. They can be replaced politically, they may retire, they may die, and some of them even may be assassinated, God forbid. So if you want to have a solid agreement, don't think about the trust in the other side of the table. It is not enough. We did not want to deceive the Palestinians. They did not want to deceive us around the table. But behind us, there were people. And if you don't decide very clearly what are the points of the agreement, you may pay a huge price. And we actually paid the price. Of course, the Palestinians too, because we did not want to continue the settlements. And since there was another government which legitimately wanted to have more settlements and to breach the international law or whatever, we did not have a tool to tell them, you have to do that. So I'm referring to trust because it seems obvious that you have to build trust and you have to have reconciliation. I mean, yes, it is important. It is important that you sit around the table and you know that the other side is not telling you lies about the agreement, or even about his or her intentions. But don't replace this trust. Don't misunderstand that this trust goes beyond your immediate negotiators.